sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
No, not just for some, but for everyone.
Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains and hillsides enough to climb.
There are oceans and rivers
Enough to cross, enough to last
till the end of time. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love.
No, not just for some, but for everyone.
Lord, we don't need another meadow.
There are cornfields and wheat fields enough to grow.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to our 2017 Special Soapbox Final. Before we begin, let's bow our heads as we pray together. Dear Lord, may your goodness and love be present amongst us this afternoon. Bless our gathering with unity, vision, and hope. Build in us all a deep respect for one another so that we may be seen as a supportive and inclusive community that encourages all voices to be heard. We pray for hope. Stir your hope in our hearts and renew our minds. May your vision fill our lives. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good afternoon everyone and welcome to this year's Soapbox Grand Final. You may remember the early stages of the Soapbox last term where girls from the middle and senior school competed against one another, each with a unique and individual stance on an ethical issue. If you have forgotten what the Soapbox is, let me remind you. It's a raised platform on which one stands to make an impromptu speech, and the tradition originates from the early 19th century when speakers, elevated on a wooden crate usually used for a shipment of soap, shared their opinions with the public. Fast forward to 2017, where you can see our finalists ready to use the soapbox to voice their thoughts on various ethical issues. As students at St. Hilda's, we are privileged to be in a school where it is not only allowed, but encouraged to speak freely about a range of different topics. This assembly is therefore a celebration of our freedom of speech. Today, we will also be hearing from a few teachers about their stance on certain issues, and of course, we'll be hearing from our Soapbox finalists. But before we get started, we have a few questions for the audience.
In this country, we say we believe in freedom of speech. Can anyone tell us what they think freedom of speech is and whether we really practice free speech in Australia today?
I think freedom of speech is being able to just speak out and not having to be put under judgment of saying what you're going to say. And I don't really think that people in Australia or people who are allowed to have freedom of speech actually use that as well as they should.
So Australia is one of the many countries who have signed up to something called the Human Rights Charter. This charter states that everyone in society is entitled to express their opinions, no matter how different their views may be compared to the majority. There are no exceptions or restrictions to this right. It also allows people to express their views through written and oral communication. For example, the media, public protest, broadcasting, artistic works, and commercial advertising. However, there are occasions when it may be restricted, in areas such as posting on the internet, the promotion of violence or damaging information about someone. While all of us can express our opinions, the laws in this country also aim to protect individuals from unfair treatment and discrimination.
You may or may not have heard of the phrase hate speech. Does anyone have an idea of what hate speech is?
Hate speech is when somebody speaks against you or says that oh, shoes suck. Yeah. Hate speech is any communication that attacks a person or group based on their race, religion, sexual orientation or gender.
In Australia, it is illegal to try to encourage others to hate others because of their race, religion, sexual or gender identity. Stereotypes, shaming, bullying and abuse are examples of hate speech. You have the right to say something, but you must also take accountability for the repercussions and the effect your words have on other people, be it intentional or unintentional. So before you say something that could be hurtful, take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and think about the effect that your comment could have on a friend, teacher or parent. Just because you say it doesn't mean you should.
Who here can give us an example of a book they've read or a TV show or movie they've watched that shows an example of where freedom of speech has been prohibited or limited? The Handmaid's Tale? There are many modern books and films which show examples of where freedom of speech has been prevented. For example, The Hunger Games, The Handmaid's Tale, 1984 and Fahrenheit 451. Yet unfortunately, in the world today, there are many countries that don't agree with the Human Rights Charter. For example, in North Korea, each home is stationed with a radio, broadcasting propaganda 24/7 and also monitoring people's activities within the home. Criticism of the leadership or regime can cause people and their families to be put in prison camps. Countries like Burma and Turkey prevent news coverage of certain events and often crack down on journalists. Even in the US, some state governments have banned topics of discussion if they are seen to challenge or contradict the views of the majority. We want you to appreciate just how privileged we are to live in a society where our speech is protected. However, with this right, we have the responsibility to protect and fight for the liberation of others, and to do this, we must exercise ethical judgment, just as we're learning about today. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Miss O'Neill to act as MC for today. Please can we warmly welcome her to the front to take over the running of the ceremony.
Thank you, ladies. Welcome, and I can't tell you how pleased I am to be back here and involved in Soapbox. There were some sensational presentations last year, and I know a message from Laura Nichols, the winner of the senior section last year, was that it was one of the highlights of her year last year. She's gone on to do some pretty amazing things herself this year. So I'm really pleased to invite our 6 finalists, 3 from the middle school and 3 from the senior school, to now come up to the front here. And this afternoon we will be announcing winners, ladies. All right, and we also have a very illustrious panel today, and I would like to introduce them all individually, and they are going to walk down and take their seats in the middle of the room here. So if you could applaud it as each one walks in. Just to start with, just take a seat, Miss Roski, I'll get to you. To start with, let's invite Mr. Crow. Some of you may know him as a maths teacher, I don't. Mr. Crow, take a seat. Welcome to this really awesome presentation. Secondly, I'd like to invite Miss Roski. Please come forward, Miss Roski. Our expert debating coach and all things debating. And finally, I would like to invite my pal in the human rights field, Miss Mann. Miss Mann works with the middle school amnesty group, so welcome, Miss Mann. You don't have to sit next to Mr. Crow, so that's really good, eh? All right, ladies. Let's get started, shall we? Just as a little aside, we did have a middle school presenter, Poppy Jane, who can't be with us today. So that's why there's only 5 people sitting up here and not 6. But nevertheless, we will still be able to hear from Poppy. All right, so let's get started with the middle school. Poppy is going to be the first one. We managed to video her performance or her soapbox at the trials, so we're going to watch that today. If I could get Pierre to roll that, please.
Hi, my name is Poppy Jane Todd, and I'm from Year 7, and today I'm going to be talking about euthanasia. Euthanasia, a Greek word meaning a good death. But is this a good way to end your life? Is it ethical? And most importantly, should it be legal in Australia? Euthanasia is a highly debated topic of today, with many people calling it unorthodox and inherently wrong. However, I think it should be legal in Australia, but only if the patient is severely ill, will never recover, and chooses this option themselves in a stable mindset. This is because I strongly believe it is very unethical to let a person suffer immense pain and discomfort when they desperately want to leave this world. It is cruel to make someone live against their will when they will surely die a miserable and heartbreaking death anyway. I also believe euthanasia should be legal in extreme cases, as by allowing people to choose the how and when of their death, you guarantee that they'll live what remaining life they have to the fullest, free from anxiety. People can choose to have their families surrounded them in a loving and supportive environment, where they can be free to take their time and say their goodbyes. A terminally ill patient can be free of worry about not having enough time to say goodbye to their family or putting their finances in order. This means patients are not burdened or worried about what will happen when they go. Researchers in the Netherlands found that friends and family members of terminally ill cancer patients who died by euthanasia had an easier time coping with the death of their loved ones. The family members had less grief symptoms and post-traumatic stress reactions than the families of comparable cancer patients who died from natural causes. This shows that the practice of euthanasia can positively benefit the patient as well as their family and friends. The choice of euthanasia in the end should be just that, a choice, and people should have the opportunity to decide for themselves. It is unfair for anyone to try and take that option away from someone because in the end, it is their life and they should have the opportunity to do anything they like with it, even if that means leaving to what some call a better place. Thank you.
Okay, unfortunately that isn't the ideal way that Poppy wanted to present, but nevertheless we still got a chance to hear from her. So I'll just ask the panellists just very quickly while they're jotting down some notes, if there's any comments they might want to make about her presentation, and just in terms of topic or anything like that.
I thought for a middle school student, this was a very brave topic for Poppy to have chosen. It's normally a topic that you'd expect to see presented by a much older presenter. So I congratulate and applaud her bravery.
Thank you, Ms. Mann, I would agree on that. All right, our second middle school finalist is Frankie Fisher. Frankie, you have 2 minutes and you can start when you're ready.
You're walking down the street with your family when suddenly you're taken away and placed behind bars, cut off from the outside world. You do not have a voice, you cannot contact anyone familiar to you, and no one understands you. All of this, and you have done nothing to deserve it. This is what it's like for animals captured in the wild and placed into captivity. Is it right or wrong to keep animals captive? I morally believe that keeping animals captive is wrong, especially when an animal is captive for your entertainment. So what is captivity? Captivity is the condition of being imprisoned or confined in a place without being able to leave or be free. Today I'll be focusing on whales and dolphins. At least 156 orcas have been taken from their families in the wild and placed into captivity since 1961. A staggering 128 of these orcas are now dead. Even the orcas that have been born into captivity will still die at an early age, as living in a pool is just not natural. In the 60s television hit Flipper, a dolphin named Kathy committed suicide due to the stress of captivity. Kathy's trainer, Rico Barry, who is now an animal activist, states that Kathy chose to stop breathing. Kathy was living in an isolated tank and was very depressed. Rico Barry stated, "She swam into my arms, looked me right into the eye, took a breath and never took another one. I let her go and she sunk to the bottom of the tank. Clearly enough was enough." We don't know what is going on in an animal's mind. Therefore, we do not understand the stress and anxiety they go through when in captivity. Before going to see animals in captivity, think about what you are supporting. Animals don't have a voice, and I believe we need to speak up for them. I'd like to finish off with a quote by Rico Barry. "A dolphin's smile is the greatest deception. It creates the illusion that they're always happy. I urge you to look beyond the smile. Thank you."
Well done, Frankie. That's quite a passionate plea, and one that I would support myself. Panellists, any quick words that you might have for Frankie?
Frankie, I think that was really well done. I loved how you painted a picture and kind of took us on the journey with you, and then your passion shone through, and I liked how you gave us a few statistics in there too. That was very good. Thank you.
Well done, Frankie. All right, our third middle school finalist is Zali Dixon. Zali, would you like to come to the microphone? Zali, you have 2 minutes and you can start when you're ready.
My name is Zali Dickinson, and today I will be speaking about child vaccinations. One of the most controversial issues today in childhood health across the globe is preventing diseases through vaccinations. The controversy is whether the risk outweighs the benefit. There is much misinformation and myth about vaccination. This causes parents to question their value. At some point in their lives, most parents will be asking the question, should I get my child vaccinated? There is one simple answer: yes. Child vaccines are crucial to the health of your child. Parents say it's hard to watch their child go through a series of shots, but it's well worth it. Vaccines protect children from numerous deadly diseases such as polio, whooping cough, meningococcal, tetanus, diphtheria, and many others, all of which are responsible for millions of deaths worldwide. Take measles, for example. Measles is one of the leading causes of death for young children. Before vaccinations, measles was responsible for an estimated 2.6 million annual deaths worldwide. That is devastating. In 2015, over 130,000 people died from measles globally. However, measles vaccinations resulted in a 79% drop in measles fatalities and saved approximately 20.3 million lives. As the overuse of antibiotics continues, so will the rise in resistant bacteria, making vaccinations even more important. As young parents refuse vaccinations, a rise in disease can and will occur, putting all of us in danger. Infections spread from person to person extremely rapidly. Currently, unvaccinated children in America will not be accepted into schools in 30 states, with many Australian states debating whether to follow America's lead. This can cause your child to be socially isolated and more susceptible to disease. Are you really willing to take that risk? Also, unvaccinated people lower the immunity of our entire community, which puts everyone at risk of a major outbreak of deadly contagious disease. For example, when army troops returned home from Europe after World War I, they brought with them the Spanish flu. This disease killed more people than those that died in the actual war. Do you want this devastating tragedy of the past to repeat itself? There are also some people who physically cannot be vaccinated. To protect these people, the rest of the community must be vaccinated or they are at risk. In Australia, our government provides vaccinations for 16 deadly diseases free for children, so there is no financial excuse for not vaccinating children either. On the other hand, anti-vaccination advocates, or anti-vaxxers as they are more commonly known as, argue that vaccinations cause autism and other disabilities. However, this is a false accusation. No statistical evidence can prove this ridiculous theory. Our society is so lucky to have vaccinations available to them, yet some people are giving up the opportunity to protect their children from constant suffering and possible death. Child vaccines should be mandatory for every single child in Australia. Vaccines are a vital necessity to any healthy life. Stop refusing, get your child vaccinated and put them out of risk. Thank you.
Well done, Zali. Another passionate speech. I think you will all agree. Panellists, any brief comments for Zali?
Thank you, Zali, for such an amazing speech. I particularly liked how you looked at current issues. You gave us a lot of information to do with stats, and you even, as a historian, you took it back to World War I, so I really commend you for looking at the grand scope.
Thank you. Well done, Zali. All right, ladies, while the judges make their decision about our middle school winner, we're going to look at a video that Lily Baker, Stephanie Cool and Sarah Letting, these two, made about ethics and what our teaching staff might think about it. So just quickly while Pierre gets that rolling, Steph, what did you learn from this video?
Well, I learnt a lot about what teachers are passionate about and also some ethical issues that I never really thought about. I might have known them, but I didn't really think too deeply about them, and it was nice to see how different teachers were passionate about different things that I hadn't even thought of.
Okay, and Sarah?
Yes, I definitely learnt about ethical issues I didn't know about either. And some of the teachers, especially, I know that Miss Corley had this idea, and I feel as though we could benefit from everything that all those teachers say.
Will we be hearing Miss Corley's awesome idea on the video? Yes. Excellent. Pierre?
The ethical issue that I'm going to talk about is testing on animals. So we're all aware that rabbits, dogs, primates all feel pain. They're all highly complex animals, and unfortunately that means that they are studied and experimented on because they are quite similar to humans. So the ethical debate is that on one hand you've got suffering and testing on animals where they're put into pain, they're kept in horrible conditions and basically experimented on for human gain. And so obviously that is an ethical issue about the treatment of those animals. On the other hand, we've got the human needs. So there have been horrific cases historically where drugs that haven't been properly trialled on animals have been given to the general public, and in one case it resulted in over 10,000 babies being born without arms and legs. Okay, that was back in the 1960s. So obviously there is a need on one hand for animal testing to assure human safety, and then on the other hand you've got the fact that animals are suffering in this process, and where do you draw the line between the two?
I am passionate about a number of ethical issues, but one that I have thought about for this interview is the way that we as Australian consumers support our farmers. Over the last few years there has been a lot of cost cutting and market competition in terms of cutting down the price of milk. You might know some of the big market supermarkets that boast about $2 milk. I know as someone who actually grew up on a farm that it actually costs a lot more than that to make the milk, and we need to invest into our farmers and invest into their properties. The difficulty is that the big supermarkets undercut the milk, the farmers aren't being paid what it costs to produce, and they are actually falling on financial difficulties. This in turn leads some of them to need to sell their farms, and which are then bought up by big companies, and there is less choice and less support of our farmers. I'm also very passionate about this because my husband had bought a block of butter that was made in Denmark. Now I urge you girls, don't ever buy butter from Denmark. We must support our Australian farmers, and we as a family make sure we don't buy the cheapest milk. We actually look for the milk that actually fairly recompenses our farmers. That's an ethical issue I think we as Australians and we as people who want to support food production, not just in Australia but around the world, need to consider.
I think I'm most passionate about use, misuse and abuse of power. In particular, the role our government should play, that if they make some major decision that affects all people, that they then follow up and show responsibility in their actions. A young man I know has just died, having not been looked after by the government on his return from Afghanistan. So I feel that if the government was willing to send him to war, they should have been there and taken responsibility for him when he returned from war. I think it also, obviously in the time of Trump, you need to think about issues such as nepotism and other abuses of power.
Okay, ladies, I think from there you can see that there's quite a number of ethical issues that we have to grapple with. I know there's a number of girls in my grade 8 humanities class who would agree with Dr. Wilson Reynolds about supporting farmers because they themselves grow up on a farm and have to work the farm when they go home on the holidays. All right, now we come to our senior school finalists, and we're getting very close to the awards. Ladies, can I please invite Denby to take the stand? Denby, you have 2 minutes and you can start when you're ready.
Let me ask you a question. Have any of you ever had smallpox? I'm guessing not, as it was completely eradicated in 1979 through the use of vaccination. Awful illnesses such as whooping cough and measles were once close to eradication, but instead are once again on the rise, with 1 in 10 Americans now delaying or refusing vaccination for their kids. In regards to ethics, vaccination is a perfect example of utilitarianism, the belief that actions are justified if they benefit a majority. Vaccines have the ability to prevent devastating diseases and have major health benefits, but can also have damaging effects and repercussions on people. Or can they? The fear of vaccines actually largely stems from misconception and miseducation. Firstly, they are vital in the development of what is known as herd immunity, the protection of the population due to a large percentage being immune to diseases. And although individuals have every right to choose whether to vaccinate themselves or their children, as many decide not to do, this process of herd immunity is compromised and many lives are endangered, including the lives of newborn babies who are not yet able to be vaccinated and require herd immunity to survive. As well as this, the belief of many anti-vaxxers is that natural immunity is more efficient than vaccination in preventing such diseases. Although it is possible, developing and surviving the disease and even only possibly becoming immune in this way is extremely risky. To me, developing whooping cough in order to become immune to whooping cough, which has just a 50% survival rate, seems counterproductive and actually quite terrifying. And then there's the argument I'm sure you've all heard of. In 1998, former Dr. Andrew Wakefield claimed to prove the link between the MMR vaccine and autism. However, his data was found to be completely falsified, and Wakefield was actually stripped of his medical license. There is no link between vaccination and autism. The diagnosis of the disorder was simply increasing at the same time the vaccine came about. Furthermore, I would like to point out that the use of this as a valid argument against vaccination is extremely hurtful, as it perpetuates the idea that autistic people are lesser than and inferior to those who are not. As someone who has an autistic brother, I believe that claiming that it is better to risk a child's life than to be like him or any other autistic person is disgusting. Vaccinations are unfortunately not a possibility for everyone, but they are for a majority. And although I've barely scratched the surface of this ethical issue, this is why I personally believe that vaccinations should be mandatory where possible, even if for no other reason than saving as many lives as we can.
Panelists, any comments for Denby?
Hi, Denby. Another discussion of vaccination, so it's obviously a very topical issue. Very well presented, I thought, very effective use of evidence, and I liked the inclusion of the personal in order to draw your audience in, so thank you. Very well done.
Well done, Denby. All right, our second speaker is Isabella. Please come to the microphone, Isabella. All right, Isabella, you have 2 minutes.
Imagine a world in which refugees are fleeing countries by the millions, unable to return to their homes not because it was bombed, but because it's underwater. This future in which smog dominates and wildlife is all but extinct is the reality of climate change. Climate change is undoubtedly an ethical issue. In facing this problem and deciding what is right and wrong, we must ask, what price do we put on the loss of wildlife? How do we value our great-great-grandchildren? Do we truly care about the future? The answers are not clear-cut, but when global warming is predicted to trigger the world's worst refugee crisis and cause mass extinction, it seems immoral to allow this to continue. But despite this, the Australian government has done almost nothing to fight global warming. A $22 billion mega mine has just been approved to be built in Queensland, despite the numerous objections. Funding for environmental organisations has been cut, the death of the Great Barrier Reef is being largely ignored, and those in power continue to deny climate change. And that's just the tip of the rapidly melting iceberg. Efforts to delay or reverse global warming call for changes to the norm,
which are typically costly to implement and direct funds away from other areas such as healthcare, infrastructure, education and defence. But we know changing isn't impossible. Japan has a nationwide recycling scheme. China, the largest carbon emitter, is also the largest investor in renewables. And in April, for 24 hours, Britain was powered solely by renewable energy. However, with these successes, doubts are raised. Should Australia have to act when the country is a relatively small contributor to global warming? Why should we suffer the financial costs? Should the Australian government be doing more to prevent climate change? To me, the answer is quite obviously yes. Mitigating global warming calls for a united front, which won't happen without Australia. We're a country desperate to prove ourselves on a global level, and we have the means necessary to improve the environment, cementing our place as a proactive world power. Not to mention, there are countless advantages for people in all aspects of life, too many to list in this short 2 minutes. But unless the Australian government and those in power around the world start facing the ethical issues and answering the hard questions now, it won't matter how much effort they put into improving other parts of our lives. Whilst the short-term impacts of battling climate change may place a strain on certain aspects of society, the decisions made today will have a lasting impact on future generations and how they enjoy the world. The answers are not black and white, but one thing is for certain. If we don't act now, in the not-too-distant future, there ultimately won't be a world to enjoy.
Well done, Isabella. Some of you may not know that Isabella couldn't speak very loudly yesterday, but I don't think that that has hurt her presentation today. Panellists, any words of encouragement?
Isabella, that was a great speech just then. I loved how you used open-ended questions and you didn't necessarily give us the answers straight away, but allowed us to think before agreeing or disagreeing with your judgment. I thought that was very good. And I loved how you talked about our community here in Queensland and how it affects us, but also talked about global efforts where others are doing a better job. So well done today.
Thanks, Isabella. All right, ladies, our third and final finalist today is Aurora Attenborough. So, Aurora, when you are ready, you may start.
So I could stand up on this big box and talk about big global issues, but I'm going to take a step down and I'm going to talk to each and one of you beautiful girls in front of me. I'm going to talk about an ethical issue that is so important yet so overseen. I'm going to talk about a big bad S word. Sugar, added sugar. I think that it comes down to our ethics when we decide on what we eat and what we feed our children. It's down to young people as we have to make the choice on what is right and what is cheap. Added sugar is a poison wearing a sweet mask. Not only does it hide behind over 200 different names, such as glucose, blackstrap molasses, and ethyl maltol, it is one of the main causes of tooth decay, weight gain, type 2 diabetes, and hormonal imbalance in women. In the UK in 2016, over 900,000 children had their teeth pulled out due to sugar. And yes, most of these children did brush their teeth. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine and has an extreme detrimental effect on our mental health. A study among middle school children reported that the risk of obesity increases by 60% for every additional sweetened drink that we drink, regardless of exercise levels. This ethical issue is because not only is the population uneducated and unaware of the effects of sugar, but many people have no idea where sugar is hidden in our diet. It takes time and effort to investigate what you're intaking. Even the foods you wouldn't believe have a huge amount of sugar do. It's a commercial trap that is almost impossible to avoid if you don't try. Through being addicted to sugar, we overlook products such as tomato sauce, soy milk, and sugar-free drinks. We become a victim to marketers and become hooked on their products. Take, for example, McCain Healthy Choice Lemon Chicken. It has over 6 teaspoons of sugar per serving. Now, this may not seem like a lot, but when you compare it to a serving of Coles brand raspberry white chocolate cheesecake, it has 2 tablespoons of sugar. And remember that your daily intake of sugar is only 7 teaspoons. The amount of sugar that is in the McCain Healthy Choice is outrageous, seeing as the recommended is 7 teaspoons. I ask you all to commit to treating your body like the temple it is. Educate yourself and remember to read on the back of the labels. And ask yourself, do you really need the extra sugar? Because if you ask me, you girls are already sweet enough. Thank you.
That was a lovely Lindsay Barrera. Panellists, do you have anything? Personally, I think we should eat lots of sugar because I love chocolate. But anyone from the...
Aurora, thank you.
Panellists?
Yeah, Aurora, thank you. I think this is an excellent topic that needs to be raised, particularly at a girls' school, because we all do like our chocolate. But I like the link that you made between that it's not about the sugar and the exercise, because you can exercise and exercise. It's not just about not getting fat, it's what's happening within, preventing diseases in the future. So it's a very serious thing that we all need to think about. So thank you for giving us an engaging presentation.
Well done, Aurora. Thank you very much. All right, ladies, they are our speakers for today. So while the panellists make their decisions about middle school and senior school winners, we are going to finish watching the video that Steph and Sarah put together with us. I think we were up to Mr. Larsen. I think he was like freeze-framed before he got anything out of his mouth. So take it away, Mr. Larsen.
The issue that comes to mind for me is Australia's treatment of the outsider. And there are two, for me, really prominent examples of that, two things worrying me in particular. The first is the treatment of asylum seekers, boat people in particular, and the fact that they are still at the moment anyway processed in offshore detention centres and they're given no hope whatsoever under current policy of being able to come to Australia. The reason that upsets me is that I think it's shifting the manner which Australia should be dealing with to other countries, less developed countries, and I don't think that's right. The core of the issue for me is that we're dealing with fellow human beings, and all human beings are entitled to love and care and compassion, and I think Australia's approach is the most unfortunate one.
Something which I worry about are the stereotypes perpetuated about men and women in the media. Most of us see Hollywood and advertisers presenting those images in a certain way. However, we often ignore the stereotypes presented to us every day across platforms in social media, the news and television, and it's concerning to me that the media doesn't actually show reality. Instead, it shows a carefully crafted image to everybody. The images we see of men, women, cultures, religions are very different to those in reality, and we need to challenge the way the media presents it so that we can see a more realistic depiction of the diversity that we have within our world.
It should be no surprise that my ethical issues to do with the environment, the fact that people have this feeling that I know that I should be doing stuff but I'm not doing it because it's too hard. There's no such thing as too hard when you're looking at environmental issues. There are some really, really simple things that people can do that we don't do because they seem to be too difficult. My thought for you today is if you enjoy coffee, you enjoy drinking hot chocolate, then you need to think about what you're drinking it in. When next you go to your coffee shop to get your takeaway coffee or your takeaway hot chocolate, take your own cup. The reality is that coffee cups, takeaway coffee cups, are not recyclable. Some are, some aren't. They tend to just literally accumulate in the environment and we pretend that's not happening.
Also, spoilers. Seriously, people spend a lot of money going to the movies and watching television shows and then something exciting happens and the internet just explodes with all of these spoilers and ruined endings. It's just not right.
Mr. Andrews, I just watched Spider-Man.
Oh dear. All right, ladies, our panellists have made a decision, so I am going to hand the envelopes with the winners' names. Here they are to Miss Simmons.
The issue that comes to mind for me is Australia's treatment of the outsider. And there are two, for me, really prominent examples of that, two things that worry me in particular. The first is the treatment of asylum seekers, boat people in particular, and the fact that they are still at the moment anyway processed in offshore detention centres and they're given no hope whatsoever under current policy of being able to come to Australia. The reason that upsets me is that I think it's shifting a matter which Australia should be dealing with to other countries, less developed countries, and I don't think that's right. But the core of the issue for me is that we're dealing with fellow human beings, and all human beings are entitled to love and care and compassion, and I think Australia's approach is the most unfortunate one.
Something which I worry about are the stereotypes perpetuated about men and women in the media. Most of us see Hollywood and advertisers presenting those images in a certain way. However, we often ignore the stereotypes presented to us every day across platforms in social media, the news and television, and it's concerning to me that media doesn't actually show reality. Instead, it shows a carefully crafted image to everybody. The images we see of men, women, cultures, religions are very different to those in reality, and we need to challenge the way the media presents it so that we can see a more realistic depiction of the diversity that we have within our world.
Alright, it should be no surprise that my ethical issues to do with the environment, the fact that people have this feeling that I know that I should be doing stuff but I'm not doing it because it's too hard. There's no such thing as too hard when you're looking at environmental issues. There are some really, really simple things that people can do that we don't do because they seem to be too difficult. My thought for you today is if you enjoy coffee, you enjoy drinking hot chocolate, then you need to think about what you're drinking it in. When next you go to your coffee shop to get your takeaway coffee or your takeaway hot chocolate, take your own cup. The reality is that coffee cups, takeaway coffee cups, are not recyclable. Some are, some aren't. They tend to just literally accumulate in the environment and we pretend that's not happening.
Also, spoilers. Seriously, people spend a lot of money going to the movies and watching television shows, and then something exciting happens and the internet just explodes with all of these spoilers and ruined endings. It's just not right.
Mr. Andrews, I just watched Spider-Man.
No,
and I couldn't believe that.
Can we thank Ms Sims for her vision and her work for this? Thank you. Well done, girls. Thank you for your talks today. They were wonderful. Micah 3:8 is a verse in the Bible that some of you might know. It says, "What does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." I'm going to close in prayer. Dear Lord, help us to be a community that respects one another deeply. Guide us in our understanding of complex ethical issues. Thank you that today we have been reminded of the precious gift of free speech. Help us to use our words to promote what is valuable and important. Above all, Heavenly Father, help us to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with you. Amen.